Thank you for listening to another episode of Partners in Crime. First of all, a mea culpa. The audio in the first few minutes of today's episode is not quite up to the level of quality that we like to put out. And that's for one very good reason. I forgot to hit record. We have, however, taken the audio from the YouTube version, the video that goes out to our patrons, and put that on the first few minutes of the show instead. You might notice the change. If you do, blame the editor.
This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and Robert Daws.
Oh, well, that's a good time for the wind to pick up, isn't it? The camera's wobbling, the mics are roaring. Yeah, welcome to another very amateurish episode of Partners in Crime. It's been still the whole half an hour.
It has, but all of a sudden, our wind's picked up, and there we are. The gazebo's still in place, and it's a little bit of drama to start the show.
Well,
I mean, if this was a theatre show, you'd probably get the old wind machine in the wings, and you give it a blast to give it a little bit of excitement, a sort of frisson of danger.
Literally a roaring start.
Yeah.
Apologies for those who are watching through Patreon. We have strapped the camera to the tent, which kind of keeps the camera up, but it doesn't mean it wobbles when the tent wobbles.
It is, and he's even strapped me to my chair, which I think is just a little bit out of order, but there we are.
That's just social distancing. Got to keep you 2 meters apart, you see. We have got a guest on the show today. Actually.
We have.
We're going to go to that in a minute or two.
Yeah.
For a book that we've been reading and enjoying. A couple of minutes of nonsense, first of all, would probably be helpful, wouldn't it? How's your week been?
My week has been, well, it's the honest truth. I've been organising my father's funeral, so it's been taken up with that, which has been
all positive.
All positive. It's been incredibly sad, as these things are, because we were very close. And anyway, so but. It's been a big distraction from that. The sheer organisation of these things is it's a bit like a theatrical production. You have to get everything in the right place. You have to get the scenery. They have to get all the words in the right place. You have to get the music in the right place. So it's been quite time consuming. But I've had plenty of time to think of other thoughts as well. So it's very nice to be in your garden talking about crime fiction and having a special guest pop up.
Yeah, well, I feel dreadful for slagging you off for not being here for 2 weeks now.
Well, you call that slagging off? Come on, give me your best shot, buddy. No. You're always kind, sweet, and well, let's end there, shall we?
I'm quite distracted by the spider that's crawling over your microphone.
There is a
money spider.
It is a little money spider, and I'm absolutely delighted with that, especially as I'm spending a lot of time doing audio and bits and pieces. So that's very good. Well, I have a very quick. That's a little bit about it, but just a little coming shortly. A little later on, I'm going to be talking about your book, but I'm also going to be talking about this extraordinarily wonderful term I have in front of me, which is a book called Agatha Christie: A Life in Theatre by Julius Green, which is one of the last words, I think, on Agatha Christie's work, but with a special attention, which is Julius's speciality, on her stage work. And it's an absolutely brilliant book, and I'm going to be mentioning that a little later on because I think it's a must-have book for lovers of crime fiction and also writers of crime fiction, particularly probably that. Anyway,
so particularly looking forward to the bit where you talk about me that you mentioned.
Yes, well, yes. We have another book here called Beneath Lies What by Croft Adam. That's the Swedish version. So yeah, we're looking forward to talking about that and mentioning the fine county of Rutland in the middle of England.
Well, a book that I read early on in the lockdown, which basically joyfully wasted the first week of it, which I very much enjoyed, was this. It's a pre-publication copy that we had our hands on early, How to Disappear by Gillian McAllister. And we mentioned that special guest on the show, and Gillian is with us here. If I can work out how to get her on video properly. There she is. Can you hear us?
Here I am. Yes, I can.
welcome to my garden.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you here.
Hello, Gillian.
Hi.
How to Disappear. Absolutely loved it, as we do with all your books, as we quite often say on Partners in Crime, waxing lyrical about you. We normally do a thing where we just read from the back, but you're here, so we'll let you do that this time and let us know what How to Disappear is all about.
So I call it a witness protection thriller. It's about a blended family, the daughter of which witnesses a murder of a homeless man when she's 14. And her testimony falls apart in court and she's named. And the family face a choice, which is go into witness protection and leave everyone you know, or stay behind.
Yeah, and things unravel, I think, is the term from there. It is packed with twists and turns all over the place. And we've spoken about this on Partners in Crime before when you've been on. But for those who are perhaps new, your background is in the law, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I was a practicing lawyer for about 4 years. So not in crime. I actually did real estate, so very unrelated to the world of witness protection or
I don't know.
policing.
I've met some pretty criminal estate agents in my time.
Yeah, I did. Sorry, go on.
No, I was saying just that I've got several friends who actually work in chambers in Birmingham, and they've always told me. I said, "Well, aren't you in crime?" They said, "No, there's no money in crime."
No, crime doesn't pay. I'm afraid.
You've got to do other things.
Yeah, development and investment
anyway.
work.
Oh. But you took English at university and then transferred to law. Was that probably not always your intention? But what drew you to law in the first place, and drew you away from English? Because you've obviously merged the two quite brilliantly now.
Yeah, I suppose I do. Yeah, I think like most English graduates, I realised during my time there that I didn't actually know what I was going to do afterwards, and the time at university just zips by. And yes. I sort of read around what you can do with an English degree, and law came up, and I thought I've always kind of been interested in the justice system. My actual career aim was to go and be a solicitor for 10 years, which is what you have to do, and then become a judge. That's what I actually wanted to do.
Wow.
But I've always wanted to write novels, and it just felt somewhat unattainable at the time. I didn't actually know how to do that when I was 21 and needed to earn a living. So I converted to law and wrote novels on the side.
And you seem to have blended the two perfectly. I'm guessing, I mean, this from a layman's perspective, I'm guessing it's probably easier for you to write these sorts of books with the legal side of things, even though it's criminal law, than it would be for a general layperson. Yeah,
I think when you go to law school, you are taught a way of thinking, definitely. So I listened to a podcast about witness protection where they said you can take your wife, but you can't take your mistress, which I thought was really interesting. And my lawyer's mind kind of immediately went to, well, where do you draw the line with who you can take, and how do you do it fairly? And I suppose as well, I do know how to find things out. I know sort of where to go and read cases if I wanted to.
Yeah. There's always those little things, isn't there, that spark something. Like you say, you hear something on a podcast, or a what if crosses your mind. I think they're definitely where the best books come from.
Yeah.
And this is an absolute cracker. It's
a wonderful conceit. It's a wonderful conceit. I mean, and I understand the problems. I mean, we all know about how hard it is to disappear. We've read things about, you've got to get rid of the money trail, and you've got to do all that sort of thing. But it seems increasingly impossible as your book shows. I mean, I just know this because we were having a small party get together of friends to organise a surprise party for someone else. and we were paranoid that one of our children, the periphery of this party, were going to tweet something or have a photograph, or it would appear on WhatsApp or Instagram or something like that, and our cover would be blown and our plans would be upset. So even on that simple social
you're a criminal
level,
mastermind, Mr.
trying to
Daws.
hide things, I do my best. Trying to hide things is very, very difficult. How to disappear completely is. I mean, how did you research that? How did you find out how someone can possibly achieve that challenging objective?
Yeah, I mean, it is almost impossible to research for obvious reasons, and people are quite unwilling to talk to me about it. So I have had a conversation with the Protection Service, but they effectively gave me a no comment interview.
But sometimes that's the best thing.
I think
because
so.
Nobody can argue with the facts, can
No,
they?
and nobody.
The way you've written it in the book, no one can go, it doesn't work like that.
Is going to come up and say on Amazon.
Exactly.
So I basically tried to use common sense. So I assume the Protection Service is a public sector sort of body. So I assumed that they would use housing available to the state. So I went with army housing, but it could be social housing, who knows. So I tried to sort of work it through in that way. And I would love to talk to the Witness Protection Service about how challenging it must be in the 21st century to disappear as opposed to 20 years ago. But no can do there. But I think it's kind of an interesting thing to mull over, that you just have such a digital footprint these days.
Yeah, that's it. Yep, you can't hide. We couldn't even hide from the
noise
plane that decided to pass over as you were talking there. Sorry about that.
It's a bit like going to MI6 and just saying, "Look, can you give me some details about how to spy on another country?"
I didn't really expect.
I mean, they're not going to do it, are they? No.
And they particularly were. When I said my books tend to be bestsellers, they were even less interested in talking to me because I broadcast what they tell me to a wide audience.
That's a very English phrase. That my books tend to be bestsellers.
Well, you never do know. You never do know how it will do.
Well, typically understated, Gillian, and typically a bestseller again. So fantastic.
Yeah, it's currently at number 8 in the Sunday Times. I found out yesterday. So I feel quite exhausted.
Well, that is absolutely terrific. Well, we're great fans of your work, Gillian, as you obviously know by now, and I still think Everything But the Truth is one of my favourite novels of the last few years.
Oh, wow.
And it was your debut.
That's so kind.
Novel, and they're all extraordinary in the same way. It says in Wikipedia that that first book deals with themes of trust in relationships. Well, so do many of your other books, in very different ways and from very different angles. I mean, that's a theme that you seem to mine superbly well.
I think all authors sort of have a few topics that they like to ruminate on in their books.
Well, Bob, I'm sure, can ruminate and wax lyrical for hours to you, because I know he's a big fan. But push on we must. So we'll tell everybody to go and grab a copy of How to Disappear by Gillian McAllister. Of course, as a listener to Partners in Crime, you can get it from Kobo, and the very nice people there will give you 90% off. And that doesn't come up Gillian's pay either. Kobo
this is what we like.
will do that themselves by using the promo code CRIME at the checkout. Gillian, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks very much.
We'll definitely get you back when your next book is around.
Oh, thanks.
Take care, Gillian.
Thank
Lovely
you.
talking to you. Bye-bye.
Well, there we go. That was good, wasn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, and it's so great. I mean, she's established herself in such a short time as a best-selling novelist in crime fiction. When you take a look at Everything But the Truth, came out in only 2017.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's her track record now is quite superb.
And at least we've been there since the start.
Yes,
we were there from day one.
Very proud of that. So, yeah, lovely. So now, next, what are you going to talk about next, Adam Croft?
Well, something that I thought was quite a nice kind of positive, uplifting thing I saw in the news this week is the COVID-19 crisis. Which, not just that itself, but there's an article in the Times where Val McDermid wrote about the fact that Nicola Sturgeon was celebrating her birthday recently, the First Minister of Scotland. Nicola Sturgeon, that is, not Val McDermid.
I knew that. No. I think Val would make an excellent First Minister.
She certainly would. And she said, whatever their politics, nobody could doubt her determination to do what was best for the people of Scotland during the COVID-19 crisis. Don't worry, we're not going off piste. She says, I think that determination is rooted in an empathy that comes from her love of reading, particularly reading fiction. The habit of reading fosters the capacity to imagine other people's lives from the inside, and a good book lets us inhabit those lives rather than spectating and rushing to easy judgment. The New Zealand Premier, Jacinda Ardern, has often spoken about the pleasure of being able to read as a child by a mother who encouraged her love of literature from an early age. And, deep breath, Katrín Jakobsdóttir, Prime Minister of Iceland, earned her MA with a thesis on the groundbreaking Icelandic crime writer, another deep breath, Arnaldur Indridason, I'll have another go at that, I still got it wrong. She was guest of honour at the 2018 Iceland Noir Festival, Katrín Jakobsdóttir, where she demonstrated the breadth of her reading in her favourite genre by moderating a panel on Golden Age detective fiction. She says, I don't think it's a coincidence that the countries led by the readers of fiction have fared better in the pandemic than others.
Very interesting. Well, here's a segue. How about that? I'm just beginning to read Quentin Bates' latest book. You'll know, regular listeners will know Quentin's work and my fondness for it. Cold Malice is his latest book, which is available from Constable, is the publishers, and available on Kobo and all good sites, as they say. Again, this is about his everyone who knows Quentin's work knows that he has his regular detective, who's a smashing character, called Detective Gunhildur Gislatodidodidodidodidod. How do you pronounce that? I never can.
Sorry, what am I pronouncing?
Gislatodidor.
I've no idea.
Well,
I don't know what you're trying to say.
That's the name of the detective.
Is that the one I just said?
Yes. No, it's another one. But
I don't know then, do I?
Okay. Well, but you know how to pronounce Dottir. Anyway, we'll get there in the end. It's an Icelandic name, and please forgive my pronunciation. Anyway, he's a detective in Reykjavik. Tries not to believe in ghosts, but when Helge, one of her team, is certain he's seen a man who has been declared dead more than 15 years ago, she reluctantly gives some unofficial leeway to look into it. And there begins his latest book. I'm about 3 chapters in, and I'm absolutely hooked. So that's Cold Malice by Quentin Bates, another great book of his, I'm sure, set in Iceland for anyone who likes their Icelandic noir.
Lovely.
Kodotidor.
If that segue from Val McDermid and Icelandic crime fiction into Icelandic crime fiction wasn't enough for you, I've got another Val McDermid story.
Oh, that's what we like.
I was reading in the Courier this week.
Keep 'em coming, son.
In the Courier in Dundee this week. Apparently, it's the turn of top crime writers, including Scots novelist Val McDermid and Craig Robertson, to work out who done it in an online interactive theatre project, which debuts next week. The Evidence Chamber has been developed by Dundee University's Leverhulme Research Centre for Forensic Science to let members of the public play the role of jurors in a murder trial. After premiering as a live show at the university's Festival of the Future event last year, the design studio Fast Familiar has now reimagined it as an interactive courtroom drama, and the two crime-writing Scots, that's Val McDermid and Craig Robertson, will be joined by Nigerian-born literary sensation Oyenkam Braithwaite, who somehow manages to get onto every episode of Partners in Crime for the last 5 or 6.
It's an achievement, and it should be recognised as such.
Indeed. The trial will take place on the 23rd of July, which is the day before members of the public can book a seat in the jury box. Yes. So yeah, that's
book a seat in the jury box.
Yesterday,
not in the dock.
Yeah, that's yesterday as it goes out. The evidence chamber takes place at various times from today, July 24th, to August the 8th, with tickets available via Eventbrite. The case that they face revolves around Rita Banerjee, a celebrated human rights activist found dead at her home. Electrical goods are missing from her office, and the suspect, Andrew Davison, swears he wasn't there. In the online jury room, participants will watch the testimonies and scrutinise the evidence before debating them with fellow jurors and reaching a verdict. So if you fancy that, that's the Evidence Chamber. Tickets available via Eventbrite.
Oh, very nice. I can't speak today. What is
I'm
the
struggling
matter with me?
too.
I am. I don't know. Do you think is it hay fever? Does hay fever affect your speech?
I think Joe put something in the coffee.
No, yes. Well,
We've both been affected at similar times.
Never
haven't we?
mind. Well, we're moving swiftly on from those recommendations. I'm now going to, before we get to the grand finale of this today's episode, which of course is What Lies Beneath, I want to talk about Agatha Christie, A Life in the Theatre. Now, it's an extraordinary book, and it's one of the biggest books we've ever had on the podcast, and it sounds a bit like this.
It's a lovely sounding book.
I mean, that is great. I mean, well solid, and although it doesn't read as such, I have to say it's a fantastic read. Certainly if you know anything about Agatha Christie, but a lot of people who read Agatha Christie may not know so much about her stage work. We have had some hugely successful television adaptations of her work in recent years, so most people know that, but this is, of course, dedicated to her life in theatre, hence its title. The extraordinary untold story of the most successful female playwright of all time. Now, did you know that? She was the most successful female playwright of all time.
I'm sorry, but yes, I did.
Yeah, you did. Okay, he knows everything. Anyway, Julius Green has numerous West End plays and musicals to his credit as a theatre producer. In fact, he's written books about it. In 2001, he produced the 12-week Agatha Christie Theatre Festival, uniquely presenting a repertoire of Christie's complete plays as then known. And in 2006, he created the Agatha Christie Theatre Company. He studied history at Cambridge, blah, 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 blah. Lots of fine academic achievements he has too. He's a regular columnist for the stage newspaper, and he knows everything about Agatha Christie and her stage work, and quite a lot about Agatha Christie as well. He's a friend of mine, and occasionally I call him Gov because he's produced me in plays as well, which anyone who's worked with me knows is no easy task. Anyway, Agatha Christie is revered worldwide for her books and for the many film and television adaptations they inspired. Less well known today is the extraordinary repertoire of stage plays that firmly established her as the most successful female dramatist of all time. Now, Julius Green raises the curtain on Agatha Christie's towering contribution to popular theatre, from her first serious attempts at playwriting in a very different style to the whodunits for which she became famous, to her record-breaking achievements in the West End and her conquest of Broadway. Astonishing revelations about this often disregarded side of her life are illustrated with extracts from hitherto unknown plays, deleted scenes from her theatrical classics, and unpublished private letters, including her extensive correspondence with the legendary Mousetrap Man, theatre impresario Sir Peter Saunders. Meticulously researched and full of groundbreaking discoveries, this book adds a fascinating new layer to Agatha Christie's remarkable story, and it really does. I mean, it's...
I thought you were going to read the whole book out then.
Chapter 1. Behind the scenes. No, it is. I mean,
I had to look and double check you weren't reading the whole thing.
I have. This is a new copy, but I got mine a couple of years ago when I was at a festival, and I'd only known Julius as a theatre producer, and there he was at Morecambe and Vice up in Morecambe with this book, which I subsequently got and devoured because it is that good. And one thing that I didn't realise about Julius is we all had to do a little sort of a stand-up and entertain. All the authors had to sort of say, do you have any other strings to your bow and can you do them? I sang a song and various people did other things, but Julius amazed us all by actually he's a fire swallower.
He's a what?
He's a fire. He swallows fire. He lights these things, puts them right down into his throat, and puts them out. It's quite extraordinary, and really not what I was expecting at all. But
No, not in Morecambe.
It's a very fine act. It would do, I think, particularly well on Britain's Got Talent. They'd ooh and ah and just say it's and put him through, I'm sure. But anyway, so the multi-talented Julius Green with Agatha Christie, A Life in Theatre. I can recommend it wholeheartedly for those interested in the golden age, but in particular in the works of the great lady. It is published by HarperCollins, and no doubt is available on lots of other platforms too. So go out and get it. It looks great in your bookcase, it sounds great, and it reads like a dream.
Well, I thought I'd read everything about Agatha Christie, but I'm clearly missing that one, so I'm going to. As I mentioned earlier, if you have not bought a book from Kobo before, you can use the promo code CRIME at the checkout, and they'll give you 90% off of your first purchase with Kobo. You don't need one of their e-readers, but I do strongly suggest them. And if you're an existing customer of Kobo, if you've claimed the Crime discount before, then you can use the promo code PARTNERS for 40% off of selected ebooks. Use the link in the show notes for that. So, it's that time of year, Bob, when, I mean, people do it all the time. That every other week on here we've got a list of, best this, best that, and we've got a couple of those that'll be coming up in Partners in Crime, Arsenic and Old Lace for our Patreon subscribers.
Ooh.
But the Strand magazine have announced nominations for the 2020 Strand Critics Awards. Is news coming out of New York.
I was going to say, I thought that must be America, because I hadn't heard of the Strand magazine.
Well, Lifetime Achievement Awards will be given to Walter Mosley and Tess Gerritsen. And nominees for Best Mystery Novel are Big Sky by Kate Atkinson, The Lost Man by Jane Harper, The Sentence is Death by Anthony Horowitz, Lady in a Lake by Laura Lippman, Heaven My Home by Attica Locke, and The Border by Don Winslow. And Best Debut Novel, the nominees are Scrublands by Chris Hammer, Miracle Creek by Angie Kim, One Night Gone by Tara Laskovsky, The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, which we've spoken about before, and 3/5, which is not an easy title to say, by John Vircher. So, when is it they're announcing those? The Strand Critics Awards will be held virtually on September the 4th.
Well, very interesting. And as you say, we're going to be looking at a bit of that in Arsenic and Old Lace. I'm going to be doing a little analysis of the bestsellers list and commenting on Peter James's hugely successful and not surprising entry at the #1 of original books this week, and very high up in the overall bestseller list as well, as he is used to for the 13th time. So
I'm reading that at the moment.
Well,
yes, I was up in Rutland again at the weekend, as I tend to be at weekends, and popped into Walker's to double check how sales of my new one were going, and I picked up Peter James's new one and started reading it immediately as well.
Well, there we are, which is a pleasant segue, and thanks for setting it up so sweetly.
Well,
Adam.
I thought I would.
Yeah, because the winds.
It is.
The wind's coming in off the hills now. Sir.
Camera's shaking.
Do you think we should be talking about your new novel, sir, under these circumstances? The omens are not good, sir.
Every time we mention it.
Yeah, the wind comes up. Well, there we are. Thereby probably lies many a tale, but this tale we're going to talk about, as we have mentioned before, is of course What Lies Beneath. We have done the back, have we not? But I'm going to do it again.
Go for it.
The first in a stunning new crime series from international bestseller Adam Croft. A peaceful Sunday morning in Rutland is shattered when a dead body is discovered on the rocks of Normanton Church. The victim has been laid out in a crucifixion pose facing the altar. D.I. Caroline Hills is certain there's a religious connection, one which threatens the tranquility of life in the area. The killer has gone to extraordinary lengths to make the symbolism clear, and the deaths will continue until Caroline and D.S. Dexter Antoine uncover the truth behind the dark secret and what lies beneath. BBC News says it's incredible. The Guardian says a sensation.
Well, technically they said I'm incredible, but
oh yes, well, we all know that. We don't need to actually boast of it. But there it is.
That's why I put it on everything.
This is your new book, and I know we chatted about it last week, but it is out when?
On Tuesday, the 28th. Yeah, I'm getting jittery actually.
Well, it's a nerve-wracking thing.
I don't often in a build-up to a launch, but this is the first time I've set one in a real place.
Is that jittery through excitement? Because I know your pre-orders have been through the roof.
They have. They have it. Yes, but it's my biggest selling pre-order book in my career so far. So that, if anything, has added some pressure. There is a bit of a worry because it is a real place. Obviously, it's a place that I know and love, and I know a lot of people there, and a lot of people are anxiously awaiting a novel. And I'm certainly feeling that pressure. I don't want I'm worried about it being received badly there. I'll put it that way.
Well, I can relate to that a little bit because, and this isn't drawing it back to me, but very briefly, because I set my books in Jib, who says, bringing it back to himself, and perhaps not too briefly, there is a sense that you hope that people at least recognise the place they're set in and don't take offence to anything you have written, because it's a real place. And Rutland is very much a real place, every bit as much as the Rock. So that is the sole reason for your jitters, that you might upset some locals who just say, well, this isn't anything like, life isn't like here. But again, we come back to this very often on the podcast, is that this is a work of fiction, ultimately to entertain, and therefore there is a certain amount of artistic license. But I'm constantly surprised by reviews I read for all sorts of things, whatever, and people taking offence on things. And you go, well, they have an absolute right to do that, but it's a strange sort of thing. This isn't real. As a writer, you want people to believe the story, and what lies beneath is an absolutely cracking story, and I think some of your best work, and so don't get jitters. If anyone complains, we'll send out the lads.
That's it. Well, yeah, I'm best friends with the police up there now, so I'll send Joe round.
What lies beneath? That reader of Adam Croft's latest novel that criticised it. So there we go.
That's a beautiful East Midlands accent there as well.
Oh, really?
No,
I didn't think it was.
Well, we have got plenty to be cracking on. We are at the half-hour mark now, so we've got plenty to be cracking on with, which we will do so in Arsenic and Old Lace. I think I made sense of that.
Yes, you did. Well, we are obviously having problems, and it's not through just the interference from the wind, although they do say the wind can drive a person mad.
Well, I think we need more coffee.
Yes,
but
and a little less wind.
A little less wind. We always need a little less wind. I think that's our episode title there. A little less wind.
A little less wind.
Yeah. I might save that one for when you're not here.
Off we go. Oh!
This time I'm making the coffee, though.
Yes.
I'm pretty certain she's put something in that.
Yes, he says, looking nervously into his mug.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Daws and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Faish. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.